The massive view screen in Earth Defense Command lit up with thousands of red dots. Admiral James Walker stood at his command post, his weathered face illuminated by the emergency lights. His worst fears had just come true. An alien fleet had arrived at the edge of human space, and it was larger than anything they had prepared for. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the largest vessel," reported Officer Pete Wilson, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies." Walker straightened his uniform. After 20 years of serving in Earth's defense forces, he had always known this day would come. "Put them through," he ordered, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. The screen flickered, revealing a tall, gray-skinned figure. Its black eyes seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The alien wore what appeared to be a military uniform covered in metallic plates. "People of Earth," the alien's voice boomed through the translator. "I am Grand Commander Vale of the Dominion Fleet. Your civilization has been chosen for integration into our empire. Surrender now, and we will ensure a peaceful transition. Resist, and we will be forced to demonstrate our power." Walker's jaw tightened. The alien ships on the screen were massive, each one bigger than the largest human battleship. Their sensors showed energy readings that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. But Walker had a secret that made him smile inside. "Grand Commander," Walker replied, keeping his voice diplomatic, "this is quite a surprise. As you might understand, such a significant decision requires consultation with our world government. We request 24 hours to provide our answer." The alien commander's face showed what might have been amusement. "You have 12 hours, Admiral. Do not test our patience. We have conquered 37 civilizations more advanced than yours. Your primitive fleet cannot hope to resist us." As soon as the transmission ended, Walker pressed a button on his command console. "Execute Operation Hornet's Nest. Authorization code Walker 77 Delta." The room burst into activity. Officers rushed to their stations, and hidden screens came to life around the command center. Deep in underground bases across Earth and Mars, thousands of small ships powered up their engines. "Send the coded alert to all squadron leaders," Walker ordered, "and get me Captain Reed on the line." Minutes later, Tom Reed's face appeared on a private channel. The young captain was already in his flight suit, sitting in the cockpit of his Corvette-class ship. "It's time, Tom," Walker said. "You know what to do. Your squadron leads the first wave." Reed nodded, a determined look in his eyes. "Yes, sir. The Hornets are ready to sting." Walker turned to his tactical officer. "Show me the Dominion fleet formation." A detailed hologram appeared in the center of the room. The alien ships were arranged in a perfect geometric pattern, beautiful but predictable. Their massive dreadnoughts formed a sphere around their flagship, with smaller support vessels creating layers of defense. "Look at that rigid formation," Walker muttered. "They fight like they've never faced a real challenge." Officer Wilson approached with a datapad. "Sir, analysis of their communication patterns shows everything goes through their command ships. They're completely hierarchical." "Perfect." Walker smiled. "That's their weakness. They expect us to fight like them, to match big ships with big ships. They're not ready for what's coming." He walked to the main window, looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the largest alien fleet ever seen waited for humanity's surrender. They had no idea that Earth's real fleet consisted of thousands of small, agile ships, each one piloted by the best pilots humanity had to offer. "Send the response to the Dominion," Walker ordered. "Tell them we need all 12 hours to prepare our surrender terms." As the message was sent, Walker received confirmations from bases around the solar system. 10,000 ships were ready to launch. The alien fleet had 30 massive dreadnoughts and 200 support ships. They thought it was enough to conquer Earth. They were about to learn why humans had studied Hornets and bees for their military doctrine. "And now," Walker said quietly, "we teach them why you should never underestimate the small ones." Deep beneath the surface of Mars, 10,000 ships waited in massive underground hangars. Each one was small, barely larger than an old Earth fighter jet, but packed with technology that would make any alien engineer stare in wonder. These were humanity's Hornet-class corvettes, the result of 15 years of secret development. Captain Tom Reed walked along the row of ships, running his hand across the smooth hull of his vessel, the Stinger 1. Unlike the enormous alien dreadnoughts above, these ships were built for speed and stealth. Each one carried a crew of only 3 people, with AI handling most of the routine operations. All pilots to their ships, the announcement echoed through the hangar. This is not a drill. Repeat, all pilots to their ships. Reed climbed into his cockpit, followed by his weapons officer Jack Miller and systems expert Lisa Brown. Around them, thousands of other crews did the same. The hangar came alive with the sound of engines powering up. "Remember when they called this project a waste of resources?" Miller asked as he checked his weapons systems. "Said we should build big ships like everyone else." Reed smiled as he remembered those early days. Earth's military had studied footage of real Hornet swarms attacking larger predators. The scientists had noticed how even the largest animals struggled against a coordinated swarm of smaller attackers. While other species in the galaxy built bigger and bigger ships, humanity had gone the opposite way. "Systems check complete," Brown reported. "Quantum communications online. Stealth systems active. We're ready." Above them, the massive doors of the underground hangar started to open. Similar scenes were playing out at bases across Mars, Earth, and several hidden asteroid facilities. Humanity's true fleet was about to reveal itself. "All ships, this is Admiral Walker." The quantum radio crackled to life. "The enemy thinks we're preparing surrender documents. They've relaxed their guard. Their sensors are calibrated for large ships and incoming missiles. They're not looking for what we're about to hit them with." Reed activated his tactical display. The Dominion fleet hung in space, like a collection of floating cities, their ships arranged in perfect military formation. Their smallest support ship was still 50 times larger than his corvette. "Launch sequence starting." The control tower announced. "Squadrons will launch in waves. Stinger Squadron, you are first wave, launching in 5, 4, 3. Reed felt the familiar push as his ship lifted off. Around him, 100 other corvettes rose into the red Martian sky. Their black stealth coating absorbed radar and light, making them nearly invisible to standard sensors. "Look at those monsters up there," Miller whispered, watching the tactical display. "They have no idea what's coming." The Hornet-class ships had another surprise: special FTL drives that could make extremely short jumps. Most races considered such jumps too dangerous, but human pilots had trained for years to perfect the technique. They could appear and disappear almost instantly, striking from unexpected angles. "All ships," Walker's voice came through again. "Remember your training. Hit and run. Don't stay still. Target their sensor arrays and communication systems first. Make them blind, make them deaf, make them unable to coordinate." As Reed's squadron climbed higher, more waves of ships launched behind them. The black swarm rose silently from bases across the solar system, invisible to the Dominion's traditional scanning systems. "Enemy fleet still maintaining standard formation," Brown reported. "No sign they've detected us. Their point defense systems are optimized for incoming missiles, not ships. We're literally too small for their automated targeting systems." Reed took a deep breath as his ship cleared Mars' atmosphere. Around him, the first wave formed up into attack position. The Dominion's mighty warships loomed ahead, their gray hulls gleaming in the sunlight. They looked invincible, but Reed knew better. "All ships in position," he reported to Admiral Walker. "First wave ready to strike." "You may proceed, Captain Reed," Walker replied. "Show them why humanity chose the Hornet as our model. Let the swarm begin." Reed's hand tightened on his controls. "Stinger Squadron, activate attack pattern Delta. Weapons hot. Let's give these aliens their first lesson about Earth." The first strike happened faster than any alien observer could follow. One moment, space was empty around the massive Dominion warships. The next, hundreds of tiny black ships appeared from multiple directions, like angry hornets emerging from nowhere. All ships, attack pattern confirmed. Reed broadcast to his squadron. Hit them hard, hit them fast. The human corvettes moved in ways the Dominion had never seen before. They darted between the massive energy beams from alien ships, their small size making them nearly impossible to target. Reed's ship dove straight toward the nearest Dominion cruiser, its dark hull absorbing enemy scanning beams. "Their point defense systems are firing," Brown called out. "But they're missing us completely. Their targeting computers are programmed for missiles, not ships our size." Reed smiled as he watched the massive alien guns firing uselessly into space. The Dominion's automated defenses were looking for incoming objects following predictable paths. But human pilots were anything but predictable. "Squadron 2, hit their sensor arrays," Reed ordered. "Squadron 3, take out their communication dishes. Let's blind them first." The human ships struck like their namesakes, each attack precisely targeted. Small but powerful plasma beams cut through the alien ship's outer defenses, their weapons perfectly sized to slip through the gaps in enemy shields designed to stop much larger weapons. Inside the massive Dominion flagship, Grand Commander Vale watched in growing horror as his sensor screens filled with confusion. Impossible. Where did they come from? How are they moving like that? His questions were answered by more alarms as the first sensor array on his ship exploded. Human corvettes had slipped past all his defenses, their attacks coordinated with terrifying precision. "Sir," Miller shouted from his weapons station, "their shields are adapting, but I found a weakness. They have to lower shield strength to fire their main guns." Reed immediately understood. All ships, new target pattern. When their guns fire, that's our window. Strike the weapon ports directly. The space around the Dominion fleet turned into a deadly dance. Human ships would dart in close, provoking the alien vessels to fire their massive weapons. But instead of fleeing, the corvettes would surge forward, slipping through the momentarily weakened shields to strike at crucial systems. "This is Captain Reed to all ships," he broadcast. "Remember your Hornet swarm training. Don't give them a pattern to predict. Keep moving. Keep striking." The first major blow came when Squadron 4 hit the main communication array of a Dominion battleship. The enormous vessel's coordinated defense systems stuttered and fell into disarray. Within moments, human ships swarmed through the gap in its defenses. "Look at that," Brown exclaimed. "They can't fight effectively without constant orders from their command chain. Their crews don't know how to act independently." Reed watched as the mighty alien ship began to drift, its main systems in chaos. His tactical display showed similar scenes playing out across the battlefield. The Dominion's perfectly ordered formation was breaking apart as ships lost contact with their commanders. "Admiral Walker," Reed reported, "first phase successful. Their defensive line is cracking. Request permission to press the advantage." "Granted, Captain." Walker's voice came back clear through the quantum comm. "Show them what a real swarm can do." Reed led his squadron in another series of lightning-fast strikes. The human ships moved like a perfectly coordinated swarm of insects, each pilot instinctively knowing where to strike next. Years of training in swarm tactics were paying off. "Their flagship is trying to restore order," Brown reported, "but they can't adapt fast enough to our attack patterns." Reed watched as another Dominion ship's weapons went dark, its crew unable to handle the chaos of fighting countless small targets. The aliens had built their entire military doctrine around massive ships and overwhelming firepower. They had no defense against an enemy that refused to fight the way they expected. "All ships," Reed broadcast, "begin Phase 2 of the attack. Let's show them why you should never underestimate Earth." The swarm surged forward as one, and the real battle was about to begin. Grand Commander Vale slammed his fist on his command console, watching another of his ships fall into chaos. "Adapt. Adapt. He roared at his fleet commanders. Break into smaller groups. Ignore the standard combat protocols. But the Dominion's attempt to change tactics came too late. Lieutenant Mary Cooper, leading her Stinger squadron, had been waiting for exactly this moment of confusion. "They're splitting their formation," Cooper reported to Admiral Walker. "Just as you predicted, sir. They're trying to create a smaller defensive web." "Execute Operation Thunderclap," Walker ordered through the quantum comm. "Show them why that's a mistake." Cooper smiled. Her squadron had trained specifically for this scenario. The Dominion ships were trying to form smaller groups, but this only made them more vulnerable to the humans' most devastating tactic: micro-FTL jumps. "All Stinger squadron ships," Cooper broadcast, "power up jump drives. Remember your training. 3 jumps maximum, then cool down. Make them count." The aliens watched in disbelief as human ships began to literally disappear and reappear around them. Their sensors couldn't track the rapid, short-range FTL jumps that the human pilots had mastered. "Impossible," an alien commander shouted. "No ship that small can have an FTL drive. The power requirements alone." His words cut off as Cooper's squadron appeared literally inside his ship's defensive perimeter. The humans had jumped so close that the aliens' weapons couldn't even track them. "Target their engine cooling systems," Cooper ordered. "Without those, their big guns are useless." The human ships struck with surgical precision. Their small but powerful weapons weren't designed to destroy the massive alien ships outright. Instead, they targeted critical systems, turning the Dominion's mighty warships into drifting hulks. "This is mad." Vale watched from his flagship as the humans seemed to ignore the laws of physics. "Launch all fighter squadrons. They must have some weakness." The Dominion's fighters emerged from their hangars, sleek, deadly ships that were still 5 times larger than the human corvettes. But size proved to be their downfall. The human ships simply had more places to hide, more angles to attack from, more ways to slip through defenses. "Watch this," Cooper told her squadron. She activated her ship's special drive, performing a maneuver that made several alien officers sick just watching it. Her corvette jumped forward, backward, and sideways in rapid succession, appearing in 3 different spots within a second. The alien fighters couldn't cope. Their targeting systems crashed trying to predict movement patterns that seemed to defy logic. Human ships would appear behind them, strike, and vanish before they could even turn around. "Lieutenant Cooper," Walker's voice came through. "Reed's squadron has created a gap in their left flank. Take your group through and hit their support ships." "Copy that, Admiral." Cooper turned to her crew. "You heard him. Let's show them another trick." The Stinger squadron reformed into an arrow formation. The aliens thought they were preparing for a conventional attack run. Instead, all 20 ships performed synchronized micro-jumps, creating a pattern of attacks that looked like lightning striking from multiple directions. "Their computer systems can't handle it," Cooper's tactical officer reported with glee. "They're trying to track our jump patterns, but their processors are overloading." This was another advantage the humans had discovered. Alien combat computers were designed to calculate complex trajectories for large-scale fleet battles. The rapid, unpredictable movements of small ships performing FTL jumps completely overwhelmed their systems. "Major Dominion vessel disabled," Reed's voice came over the comm. "That makes 3 capital ships down." Cooper watched her tactical display as the mighty Dominion fleet continued to struggle. Their rigid command structure was falling apart as more ships lost communication. Individual alien commanders, trained to wait for orders, found themselves unable to adapt to the chaos around them. "All ships," Walker's voice carried across the battlefield. "Phase 3 begins now. Show them why humanity chose to be the swarm rather than the giant." Cooper gripped her controls tighter. The real battle was about to begin, and she couldn't wait to show the aliens what else humanity had in store for them. Admiral Walker stood in Earth Command's central control room, watching thousands of data streams flow across the holographic displays. The massive screen showed his forces as blue dots swarming around the larger red shapes of Dominion ships. It looked exactly like a Hornet swarm attacking a much larger creature. "Status report," he commanded, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. "Reed's squadron has disabled their third capital ship," his tactical officer reported. "Cooper's group is wreaking havoc on their support vessels. The Dominion fleet is falling into complete chaos." "Sir." Walker nodded, watching the perfect execution of a plan 15 years in the making. On the main screen, human ships moved like a single organism, attacking and retreating in perfect harmony. The quantum communication network let them coordinate instantly, without any delay. In his flagship, Grand Commander Vale was finally beginning to understand the true horror of his situation. They're not just attacking randomly, he realized, watching the human ships move. This is a perfectly coordinated assault. But how? No fleet can coordinate this many small ships so perfectly. The answer came in the form of another devastating attack. Human ships struck simultaneously at 12 different points in his fleet, each strike targeting crucial communication and sensor systems. The attacks were so perfectly timed that they had to be coordinated somehow, but Vale's sensors detected no communication signals between the human vessels. "Sir." Vale's second-in-command rushed in. "We've lost contact with the entire left flank of the fleet. Somehow they're blocking all our communication frequencies." Vale slammed his command console in frustration. The mighty Dominion fleet, terror of 37 conquered systems, was being torn apart by ships so small they would normally be considered insignificant. Back in Earth Command, Walker initiated the next phase of his plan. "All squadrons, execute Pattern Omega. Show them the full power of the swarm." The human ships suddenly shifted their attack pattern. Instead of striking individually, they moved in perfect geometric formations, creating what looked like a giant net of small ships. The net began to contract, trapping several Dominion vessels inside it. "Admiral," Lieutenant Cooper's voice came through the quantum comm. "Their flagship is attempting to reorganize the fleet, but most of their ships can't receive commands anymore. They're fighting blind." Walker allowed himself a small smile. The Dominion's greatest strength, their rigid, hierarchical command structure, had become their greatest weakness. With their communication systems in chaos, each ship was forced to fight alone. And alone, they were no match for the coordinated human swarm. "This is impossible." Vale watched helplessly as another of his mighty dreadnoughts went dark, its systems overwhelmed by precisely targeted strikes from dozens of tiny human ships. No race has ever developed quantum communications small enough to fit on fighter-sized ships. But humanity had done exactly that. While the Dominion had focused on building bigger ships with more powerful weapons, Earth's scientists had worked on miniaturization and coordination. Each human corvette carried a quantum communication system that let it instantly coordinate with every other ship in the fleet. "Sir," Walker's tactical officer reported, "the enemy fleet's formation is completely broken. Their ships are starting to fire randomly, trying to hit our corvettes. They're more likely to hit their own vessels now." Walker watched as the mighty Dominion fleet began to break apart. Ships that had once moved in perfect formation were now drifting in confusion, unable to coordinate their actions. The swarm had achieved its goal, total chaos in the enemy ranks. "Send word to all squadrons," Walker ordered. "Begin final attack pattern. Target their flagship. It's time to end this." Across the battlefield, human ships began to move into their final formation. Thousands of corvettes, each one a tiny part of a greater whole, all moving with perfect coordination through their quantum network. They looked exactly like a swarm of angry hornets closing in for the kill. "Show them," Walker said quietly, "why humanity chose to perfect the swarm instead of building giants." The final phase of the battle was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The mighty Dominion flagship hung in space, surrounded by the chaos of battle. Its once perfect fleet formation had dissolved into scattered groups of confused ships. Grand Commander Vale watched helplessly as human corvettes struck again and again, each attack more precise than the last. "Status report," Vale demanded, his voice shaking with rage. "We've lost contact with 60% of the fleet," his officer reported. "Most command ships are either disabled or unable to transmit orders. Our remaining ships are. They're starting to retreat without orders, sir." Captain Reed's voice crackled across all frequencies, deliberately breaking through the Dominion's command channel. "Attention, Dominion forces. Your command structure is broken. Your ships are isolated. Surrender now." Vale roared in defiance. "Never. All remaining ships, form up around the flagship. We still have enough firepower to—" His words cut off as Lieutenant Cooper's Stinger squadron appeared from nowhere, materializing through a series of perfect micro-jumps. Her ships had bypassed the flagship's outer defenses completely. "Target their primary command tower," Cooper ordered her squadron. "Let's cut off the head of the snake." The human ships struck like lightning, their smaller weapons finding gaps in the flagship's defenses that larger ships could never exploit. They didn't need to destroy the massive vessel. They just had to disable its ability to command. "Sir," Vale's communication officer shouted, "we're losing control of the fleet coordination systems. The humans, they're not just attacking our antennas, they're somehow infecting our command network." This was humanity's secret weapon, developed over years of studying the Dominion's rigid command structure. Each human corvette carried not just weapons, but specialized electronic warfare systems designed to disrupt and confuse enemy communications. "All ships, execute final phase." Admiral Walker's voice came through the quantum network. "Show them what happens when you rely too much on central control." Across the battlefield, human ships began broadcasting carefully designed signal patterns. To the Dominion's automated systems, it looked like hundreds of different flagship commands being issued simultaneously. Their computers couldn't handle the contradictions. "The fleet computer network is crashing," Vale's officers reported in panic. "Ships are receiving conflicting orders. We can't." Before he could finish, Cooper's squadron struck again. Their plasma beams sliced through the flagship's main communication array with surgical precision. The mighty vessel's ability to coordinate its fleet died in a series of small, precise explosions. The effect was immediate and devastating. Without the flagship's constant stream of commands, Dominion captains found themselves having to make decisions on their own, something their training had never prepared them for. "Look at them," Reed observed, watching the enemy fleet's reaction. "Their entire military doctrine is built around following orders. They don't know what to do without someone telling them exactly how to fight." One by one, Dominion ships began to break formation. Some tried to continue fighting alone, but without coordination, they were easy prey for the perfectly synchronized human swarm. Others simply turned and fled, their captains unwilling to fight without direct orders. "This is why we chose to be different." Walker's voice came through to all human ships. "While they built their military on strict obedience, we built ours on initiative and adaptation. Every human captain can think and fight independently, yet work perfectly as part of the swarm." The battle space around Earth had become a graveyard of disabled Dominion ships, not destroyed. Humanity had deliberately aimed to disable rather than destroy, but floating helplessly, their mighty weapons silenced by swarms of tiny attackers they had once considered beneath their notice. "Send the final message," Walker ordered. Reed's voice broadcast again on all frequencies. "Attention, Dominion flagship. Your fleet is broken. Your ships are scattered. This is your final chance to surrender." On his command deck, Vale stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. The greatest fleet in known space had been defeated by ships so small they shouldn't have been a threat. And now those same tiny ships surrounded his flagship, their weapons aimed at every crucial system. The mighty Dominion was about to learn its final lesson about underestimating humanity. The silence in space felt heavy as Grand Commander Vale stared at the holographic display showing his defeated fleet. Dozens of mighty Dominion warships floated powerless, their systems disabled by precise strikes from human corvettes. His remaining operational ships had either fled or surrendered. Around his flagship, thousands of human ships held position in an intricate three-dimensional pattern. They looked like a cloud of angry hornets waiting to strike their final blow. "Your response, Commander Vale." Admiral Walker's voice came through clearly on all channels. "Will you surrender, or should we demonstrate our capabilities one final time?" Vale looked at his bridge crew. Their gray faces showed a mixture of fear and disbelief. The mighty Dominion fleet, undefeated for 3 centuries, had been brought low by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. "How?" Vale finally asked, his voice broadcasting across all frequencies. "How did you defeat our superior technology?" Captain Reed's squadron moved closer to the flagship, their black hulls reflecting the distant starlight. "We studied nature," Reed replied. "While you built bigger ships, we watched how tiny hornets could bring down creatures hundreds of times their size. We learned that size isn't everything. Coordination, adaptation, and intelligence matter more." Lieutenant Cooper's Stinger squadron shifted position, their formation creating a perfect net around the flagship's crucial systems. "You built your military on blind obedience," she added. "We built ours on initiative and teamwork. Every human captain can think independently while still working as part of the whole." In Earth Command, Admiral Walker watched the exchange with satisfaction. "Commander Vale," he spoke, "your empire has conquered 37 civilizations by overwhelming them with your massive ships. Today, you learned that bigger isn't always better." Vale stood from his command chair, his proud shoulders finally slumping in defeat. "In 300 years of Dominion expansion, no one even tried to fight like this." He paused, looking at the swarm of human ships. "I, Grand Commander Vale of the Dominion Fleet, officially surrender to Earth forces." Walker's voice carried authority as he responded. "Surrender accepted. These are our terms. The Dominion will immediately withdraw from Earth's space. You will never again threaten Earth or its colonies, and you will spread the word to every spacefaring race. Humanity is not to be underestimated." "And if we refuse these terms?" Vale asked, though his voice lacked conviction. In response, every human corvette activated their weapons, creating a web of targeting lasers that covered every crucial system on the flagship. The message was clear. They could end this at any moment. "Very well," Vale agreed. "The Dominion accepts your terms. We will withdraw." He paused before adding, "You have earned your place among the stars, humans, not through brute force, but through innovation and strategy." Admiral Walker smiled as he gave his final order. "All ships, stand down but maintain position. Captain Reed, Lieutenant Cooper, escort the Dominion flagship to the withdrawal point." As the mighty alien ship began its retreat, surrounded by the tiny vessels that had defeated it, Walker addressed all human forces. "Remember this day. We proved that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to think differently, to adapt, and to work together." The human ships moved in perfect formation, their quantum network humming with coordination data. They had won not by building bigger weapons, but by changing the rules of space combat itself. News of the battle spread quickly across the galaxy. The story of how Earth's tiny ships had defeated the mighty Dominion fleet became a legend told in every spaceport and on every world. Humanity became known as the Swarm, not as an insult, but as a term of respect and fear. In the years that followed, no alien fleet ever again threatened Earth. The image of thousands of small black ships moving like angry hornets served as a powerful deterrent. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not through overwhelming force, but through ingenuity, cooperation, and the willingness to think differently. The age of the giants was over. The era of the Swarm had begun.